You're live.
All right. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for joining us today for the Board of County Commissioners agenda setting and work session for May 26th, 2020. By way of introductions, I'm John Hutchings, the chair of the board, and we also have Vice Chair Commissioner Ty Menser, and we have Commissioner Gary Edwards in the House, County Manager Ramiro Chavez, and we have Public Health and Social Services Director Shelley Slaughter, and the Thurston County Health Officer, Dr. Diana Yu, and I won't say anything because you are working full time. Ramiro, are there people online or on the screen I don't see?
Yes, sir, but I don't know how many.
Is now joining the conference.
And I know Keely
Make
Marrow.
an announcement again, please.
Yeah.
For those who have joined on a conference call, please mute your phone. Thank you, sir.
So will you continue with introductions that I don't see? Keely Marino, I know, is in the house. Do you see her up there? Oh, there she is. Teresa Parsons. Do we have Elizabeth Petrich?
Yeah, she is there.
Okay. Well, I'll just let them introduce as they come on then, okay, because I can't see everybody. And for those of you in the public that want to attend,
Joining the conference.
the phone number is 360-252-9020, and that PIN is 1234. And you're welcome to join in and listen via the conference call without adding to the conversation. And please, when you sign in, mute your phones. So with that, we're going to start with the COVID-19 update. And am I starting with you, Shelley, or Dr. Yu?
Shelley.
Okay, go ahead.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm going to provide you the latest data and report that we have from the state of Washington and from Thurston County. So in Washington State, as of yesterday's data, there are 20,065 COVID-19 confirmed cases in Washington State, 1,070 deaths. In Thurston County, we stand at 132 cases. Unfortunately, our streak of no cases that we had last week ended this weekend, and we had 5 additional cases. We have had 1 death in Thurston County. 19 people have been hospitalized during the course of their illness. 68% of those had underlying conditions. 122 have been released from public health supervision and are recovering, although we don't know the long-term effects of COVID-19 yet. Throughout Thurston County, we have confirmed cases of COVID-19. The greatest reported number of cases is in the 98513 zip code. Happy to report that we have no congregate care setting outbreaks. We are working with our long-term care facility partners over the next couple of weeks to help support testing of residents and staff in long-term care facilities here in Thurston County. We have no reported cases of multi-system inflammatory syndrome in children in Thurston County. However, there are 2 in Washington State, so we continue to monitor that. Our hospital capacity is adequate right now. Both hospitals, Capital Medical Center and Providence St. Peter Hospital, have committed to reserving 20% of their bed capacity for a potential surge of COVID-19 patients. They report that they have more than 2 weeks on hand of appropriate PPE and ventilators and are using conservation strategies to ensure that. The Board of Health on Friday approved our phase 2 application, and that's an item that I know you'll be considering later in the agenda today. I'm proud to report that Thurston County does meet all the requirements, and we will discuss that further if you have questions shortly here. Just do want to remind the public that until that application is approved by the Board of County Commissioners and then by the Washington State Department of Health Secretary, that Thurston County is in phase 1, and vulnerable people should continue to stay home and stay healthy. And we encourage people that are out to wear cloth face coverings. And if they develop symptoms, to please go get tested. And we have many locations throughout Thurston County available for people to get testing if needed. And that concludes my report, and I will pass it to Dr. Yu if she has additional things to add, and then I know Director Hardin may have some additional information to share from emergency management.
You're muted, Commissioner.
Dr. Yu, do you have any comments?
Well, actually, the only comment that I want to make is to kind of echo what Director Slaughter has just mentioned, and that is in addition to the social distancing, always at least 6 feet. I am encouraging every citizen to wear a face covering when they're out in public, especially if they might have to be closer than 6 feet to somebody, like in passing in an aisleway or something like that. I recognize that there are folks who may have a difficult time wearing a face covering because of racial overtones. Also, some folks that have chronic lung disease may have a difficult time wearing face coverings for a long time. And I was made aware that sometimes victims of domestic violence might have a difficulty wearing a face covering because of the not getting enough air, that feeling. So recognizing that, I still encourage everyone who is able to wear a face covering. A face covering does not protect you. It is a courtesy to others. In case you're coming down with an illness, any illness, including COVID-19. And we do recognize that some people may have COVID-19 and not have symptoms. Definitely, if you're not feeling well, you should stay home. And it is encouraged that folks who are over the age of 65 and those who are at high risk should continue to stay home to stay healthy until phase 4. So it means just essential trips out or, having things delivered to you. I know it's very, very tough for folks to do that. But it is something that you need to do if you would like to protect yourself. That's all.
Thank you, Doctor.
Oh, and don't forget to wash your hands.
Yeah, thank you for that. Marrow, did you have, you had your hand up?
Yeah, there's maybe an opportune time over the weekend. I think Dr. Yu was laying out a response that she provided to a comment that Commissioner Hutchins received from a citizen over the weekend related to face covering. That is included on your packet.
Yes.
Dr. Yu did provide a response over the weekend, and I think she just laid out the response to that. Since you received that communication from a citizen, Commissioner Hutchins, is that an adequate response, or do you need additional information?
No, that is an adequate response. It was a citizen that reached out, a business owner wanted to know, he is requiring masks for his personnel in his store, and was in contact with the other city mayors, at least in his city, and asking about making it mandatory mask wearing for everybody in the county when you're outside. And so the recommendation was, if that were to be the case, it would come from the county and not from each city. And so I didn't bring it forth in an effort to advocate for it. It was just so we can have a discussion and weigh in with you, Doctor, about that, making it mandatory, and just to urge and recommend people, please wear, when you're going out in public, wear your masks. And why. And so this satisfies the intent that I wanted, was a discussion about that. A great deal of personal responsibility comes into play with the public for themselves and others' protection. Did you have any comment on that, ma'am? Yeah, go ahead, Doctor.
Well, one of the issues is making it mandatory. It's not something that is possible for us to actually enforce. I would encourage businesses that have concerns about their staff, especially when they have to have a lot of customers coming into their place of business. it is for the protection of your staff as well as your other patrons for you to require face covering, and recognizing that there are some limitations to that. But in general, most people going into a place of business is just visiting for a short while. But the important thing is maintaining that social distance. So if you're able to 100% maintain that 6-foot distance, then the face covering is not as important. But as people are out and about and there's more crowding, even though we're asking people to social distance, sometimes it's not possible. And wearing a face covering will help.
So he suggested he was going to have a sign, or has a sign, that says no shirt, no shoes, no service. He was going to add no masks, no service.
Mm-hmm.
But again, as you suggest, it's a strong recommendation, but it is not an enforceable type action. Even a governor's order is difficult to enforce. Commissioners, do you have any comments?
No, sir.
No? Go ahead, Ty.
So I take it from the implication of the email and the discussion that King County passed an ordinance requiring everyone to be masked at all times in public in any context, or is that correct?
I don't know. I just take that at face value in the email. So I don't know if King County by ordinance did that or not, and what the enforcement policy says. It'd be so difficult to enforce whether they have one or not, but I don't know that answer. Do you, Shelley?
King County and Spokane County, I believe both, their health officers and city administrators invoked that.
So they made that an ordinance that you must in public.
Yes, they did.
Okay, I would imagine there's a civil infraction then if they don't.
Conference.
But I haven't read the ordinance, so I don't know. Okay. Anything else, Doctor? Anything else, Ty? Okay. Then that satisfied my piece of that. Thank you for bringing that up, Marrow. So we have Kurt Hardin now on the phone or on video.
Good morning, Commissioners. I have nothing new to add other than the updates that Dr. Yu and Director Slaughter provided. We still do not have a final decision from the state on the PPE issue, where the state is reconsidering to charge for PPE that's distributed down to local jurisdictions. Other than that, and subject to your questions, that's all I have.
All right, and so for the people listening, Kurt, and I only know you as Kurt, will you introduce yourself, please?
Sorry, sir. Kurt Hardin, Director of Emergency Services.
Great, you're doing a fantastic job. Thank you, Kurt. Any questions for Kurt? Nope. Okay. Dr. Yu, thank you very much. Shelley Slaughter, Director, are you sticking around? Okay. And now we're moving on to Keely Marrow, the homeless strategies coordinator. Go ahead.
Good morning, Commissioners. Keely Marrow with Thurston County Public Health and Social Services. First, I wanted to mention what I'm sure most people are aware of, that on Friday of last week, there was a terrible fire at the Quality Inn in downtown Olympia. That hotel had been housing 13 families that were placed there by Family Support Center of South Sound, as well as a few other individuals that the city of Olympia had placed in that hotel. They are all safe. They were all evacuated. There was quite a coordinated effort between the city of Olympia, Intercity Transit, and Family Support Center. Also, Director Slaughter and myself were made aware of it in the middle of the night on Friday. All of those individuals have been placed in another hotel and will remain there for the time being, but it was just a remarkable coordinated effort. And I just wanted to do a little shout out to City of Olympia and Intercity Transit for their swift, and Family Support Center for their swift response to that terrible situation. If they are receiving, they're open to receiving donations, Family Support Center, and what they're really asking for are gift cards, digital gift cards from Walmart or Target, Safeway, or Fred Meyer. Just it's really difficult to donate clothing items if you don't know the sizes. There's 37 individuals in that 13 family cluster, so it's quite a large number of individuals. So if you feel so inclined, that's one thing that they are asking for, is help in that way. Other than that, we had 3 folks in quarantine and isolation last week. We had 2 testing events. 2 people entered quarantine and isolation from those testing events. Both of those people have been discharged as they were negative for COVID-19, and they're back in the services they were accessing prior to quarantine and isolation. And we have 1 more remaining in quarantine and isolation, and will be able to be discharged at the end of this week. And other than that, that's pretty much my update.
When I was informed of the fire and the quick response from the county and family support services and such, I was, boy, that was really quick. And now you know and you probably already have, but that 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning phone call that wakes you from your peaceful sleep, and it's got to go. I mean, you click on and you're on right now. And so thank you, and Shelley as well, if she's still around, for jumping in right away, and Trish Gregory. That's just way, way cool. Everybody came together, their house and taken care of, and now they're looking for, like you say, gift cards or e-cards. Please, folks, please find in your heart to donate an e-card to help these people. And they're looking for hygiene products as well. They'll know what to shop for. So all you have to do is just get a card. Thank you. Any questions for Keely? Yes, sir, Gary.
Hold on. There you go.
Did they come up with a suspect in that fire yet?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Do you know if the fire has been deemed suspicious or accidental?
The word that I got initially was that it was accidental, but I haven't heard any reports since Friday on the fire.
Okay. Commissioner Mensah, anything?
No, thank you.
All right. Keely, thank you very kindly.
Absolutely.
All right, so the May meetings of the BoCC have been canceled, and so now we're going to review the week of June 2nd, review the items coming up.
Yeah, Commissioner, before you review the items, consider the board has taken an action to cancel the May meetings. This is your last, obviously, would have been the last scheduled meeting today.
Right.
Considering that the government, quote unquote, is now open until phase 3 of the governor's plan, my suggestion for you to consider canceling next week meeting and maybe just going on a week by week basis as to how you would like to have those meetings or not, without now knowing how the phase approach will work in June. I am not suggesting for you to cancel all the June meetings, maybe assessing this on a week by week basis.
Commissioners, any input or comment?
Weekly, that sounds like that's the right way to go for me.
Commissioner Mensah?
That's fine. I mean, if we were approved this week, we know where it's going to be 3 weeks, most likely, to get to phase 3 where we can be fully functional. So I wouldn't mind to cancel a couple, but either way, I mean, just pointing that out, that we've got probably a 3 week.
Right.
Hopefully just a 3 week.
Yeah, hopefully just 3 weeks. That's correct.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I, with that in mind, and what Commissioner Edwards just said, I agree. That's to do it weekly, just case by case. It's only probably 2 or 3 more.
So we will cancel the formal Board of County Commissioners meeting for June 2nd.
Thank you. All right. Excuse me. Now we're moving into the week of June 2nd then, the items that we'll be discussing next week, and that will be number 1, the lease extension amendment with diverse properties.
Yeah, for your consideration, Commissioners, the Central Services is requesting for you extending a lease from August 1st, 2020 through July 31st, 2025. The county leases a property on 2947 Johnson Boulevard in Tumwater, and we lease just about 10,000 square feet. and we use that space for the county record center. That current lease expires on July 31st, 2020. So the estimated annual cost of this lease is $67,488. It's just about $5,624 a month, which includes, on a monthly basis. And also this contract, this lease includes an increased lease every year based on the CPI of 3%, whichever is lower. These rates have already been included on the central services rates, and it's already included in the budget. Utilities, taxes, and insurance for the same
Has
period
left the
are
conference.
estimated to be approximately $52,771.90. So for your consideration, Commissioners, for you to consider getting into this lease agreement, they will take us for the next 5 years, again until July 31st, 2025.
All right, are there any questions?
I would have one question possibly. Because Central Services deals with all the records that the county generates, as far as I know, does part of this payment schedule the cash come from a fund other than current expense or general fund? Is it prorated out to the different?
It is prorated. It is a combination of the general fund and restricted funds, because it will provide services to all county departments.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Menser?
Carolyn Sanchez has left the conference.
Commissioner Menser, do you have any questions?
I know, yeah, not really. It's straightforward. I just know that in other businesses that I've been involved in prior to becoming commissioner, most of which were legal businesses, pretty much people were phasing out their physical records retention, and they were just basically, when the record would be transferred to an archive location, somebody would be there scanning it in and then disposing of it, and essentially it all went to a digital cloud-based storage. And I have no idea the volume of records we're talking about here, and I'm sure that's something that's a big project for something like Thurston County, but it's probably something we should be thinking about, how that could be handled over the future.
Right, and have you visited that center?
I have not, no.
It's an eye-opener.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Robin.
We have quite a backlog of records that have been sent to the Record Center over the years. And we have 2 staff who are there trying to digitize all of our historical records as well as records that are coming in. And we've also made an effort across the county for people to digitize their records instead of sending physical records to the Record Center. But we still have a whole warehouse of paper folders that we cannot destroy without the permission of the owner. So that's where we're at right now. We're working toward digital, but we're not there yet.
Thanks, Rob. Good for me.
I can't tell you what the records are, but there are a few records that are of such historical significance that go back a long time that are pretty cool. I went and saw this about probably 3 years ago in my first term, and it was very, very cool. But how long have we been out there, Robin, at this location?
For at least 10 years and longer.
Okay.
10 years that I know of.
Okay. Commissioner Edwards, anything?
No, sir.
Okay. All right, that's take care of number 1. And number 2, public health.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner. I was just curious as to, somebody just joined the Zoom meeting, Mr. Tom Thorning. Can you give some perspective?
I'm here.
And you joined, introduce yourself, please.
Good morning. I'm Tom Thorning. I live on 103rd Case Road. I have applied for the position as Thurston County or Hopkins Ditch Commissioner.
Oh, okay.
Got it.
Yeah, this,
Can you mute
go ahead,
yourself, please? Can you mute yourself and also block the video? We'll get to you in a few minutes.
Okay, I'm sorry, say that last part again.
Could you please mute yourself and block the video, and we'll get to you in a few minutes.
Very good.
Thank you. Thank you, Romero.
Did we take a motion and vote on this? You got it?
No, you will take, I'll bring that for next week. You just
That's
review the
next week.
items, and next week you'll take action.
That's very good.
Okay.
Now waiting for Mr. Thorning to mute or unvideo yourself. Stop the video.
I think he's there.
There you go. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Number 2, public health.
Yeah, Commissioners, for your consideration is a reclassification for public health and social services from an education outreach specialist 1 to an education and outreach program assistant. And this is the services, they have gone through the process of this vacant position and determined this new classification will meet the needs of the Nurse Family Partnership Program. This particular action will reduce the salary from $6,232 to $5,383. That will be just a 13.52% of savings, or a reduction of $843 per month.
All right. Any questions? Nope. Okay, number 3.
Sorry, I have questions.
Yes, go ahead.
This is this is an unfilled position. I'm sorry. Or is it-
I believe there is a vacant position, and they'd like to reclassify this, and Shirley can give you more information related to that.
Just to point out that in our discussion on Friday about vacancies and not filling them, I know we exempted public health, but I think I used this position specifically as an example. So I guess I would ask Shelley what the connection is of this position to, or why possibly it should be outside the generalized freeze that we imposed last week.
Sure, yes, Commissioner Menzer, I'm happy to do so. This position, this reclassification was an attempt to reduce costs, and this position was submitted to HR prior to your discussion on Friday. This education and outreach program assistant position is required by the National Service Office for the Nurse Family Partnership Program to meet fidelity. And the person previously in that position was promoted to another social services position within the department. So the position is vacant, and it is required for us to maintain fidelity for the program. But staff did work to find a way to reduce that cost, and we reflected that in the change request that we submitted as part of the budget process. It is not a COVID response position, however.
Got it. Thank you.
Good question. All right. Anything, Commissioner Edwards?
No, sir.
Okay. Number 3, Consolidated Homeless and Housing Essential Needs Grants.
Yeah, as a matter of background, Commissioners, on May 21st, 2019, the Board of County Commissioners approved affordable housing and homeless services contracts for 14 projects, which at that time total value of $4,407,977, which the source of that included many federal, state, and local funding sources. For the state funding sources, the Thurston County signed a 2-year grant agreement with the Washington State Department of Commerce, which goes until June 30, 2019. That was when it was signed. The contract provided for a total of $5,935,955 of funding under the Consolidated Homeless Grant, also known as CHG, and also under the Housing and Essential Needs, which is the HEN, also HEN. This particular proposal is for use to extend the contract to June 30, 2021, and use the remainder, $2,789,770, to continue the performance of those contracts. This is not additional funding. This is just a carryover, I believe, from the initial $5,935,955 that it was a contract with the Department of Commerce. And again, this proposal does two things: is move forward the unused money for the CHG and HEM, and also extends the contract to June 30, 2021. I believe Tom Webster is online if you have any questions related to this proposal.
Any questions, Commissioners? Go ahead, Gary.
Is the funding involved 100% pass-through funding, or is there match general fund money involved?
In this case, I don't believe it is a matching requirement, but Tom can probably clarify that. He's available.
No, sir, there's no match requirement. This is 100% pass-through from contract from the state.
Thank you.
Commissioner Menser? Good question, Commissioner Edwards. Thank you. So that moves us on to number 4, DSHS long-term payable interlocal agreement.
Yeah, this particular proposal is related to the Developmental Disabilities Program, also known as DD. And this is a yearly action the board takes in order to receive money from the state to carry on this contract, this program. And this is really a cash flow related action. So as a matter of background, the State Department of Social and Health Services, DSHS, Interlocal Long-Term Payable Agreement provides advance funds to the Public Health and Social Services Department to provide for cash flow on-cost reimbursement contracts for the Developmental Disabilities Program. The current advance amount in this contract is for $809,246. This has not really changed, and what it does, this amendment, is to add an additional year of performance that goes from July 1st, 2020 to June 30th, 2021. And again, I believe this pass-through money, and this will give us an additional year to provide the services to those individuals within that program.
All right, any questions or comments?
No, sir.
No? Okay. Commissioner Menser, no?
Just, this might be one where you want to amend the proposed action language. It's not really clear that it's an extension. It's not really clear it relates to the program that it relates to. It's kind of difficult to understand for the public, so we might want to tweak that a little bit.
Sounds good. We'll revise the action to make it clearer. Thank you, sir.
And number 5, approving the 2020 Health and Human Services Council Basic Needs Contract.
This particular item is related to the Health and Human Services Council, the HHSC. As a matter of background, the HHSC is comprised of 8 jurisdictions. That would be Thurston County, the cities of Olympia, Lacey, Tumwater, Tenino, Yelm, Rainier, and the towns of Bucota, which we have signed in a local agreement. The goal of the HHSC is to provide funding to local organizations that provide services to address unmet essential health and human services needs within the Thurston County region. In February 2020, this year, the HHSC established a basic needs priorities for the 2020 funding year, and they issue a request for proposals. They review the applications, and as a result of the review of the applications, they are suggesting for you to consider funding a specific programs for the specific amounts. The request for proposal received a total of 15 applications, which the total request of those 15 applications was $700,216. However, the award, the available money, is only $249,733. So the HHSC has moved forward recommendations for you to consider funding. Catholic Community Services Southwest for the community kitchen for $70,000. Community Youth Services, CYS program support for $21,000. Rochester Organization of Families, also known as ROOF, emergency needs for $14,178. Senior Services of South Sound for senior nutrition programs, $17,500. The Thurston County Food Bank for Food Bank Collaborative, $86,278. For Thurston County Food Bank again, other bank hygiene and households for $19,778. And last is the Together organization meeting emergent and basic needs for vulnerable and homeless students and the families for $21,000. Those are the projects. The HHSE is forward for the commissions to take an action and award those contracts. I believe Commissioner Hutchins represents the county on the HHSE, and I believe also Tom Webster is the staff who facilitates that conversation with the group. And I believe they can probably have any questions, fill any questions that you may have.
So, Commissioner Edwards, Councilmember Tumwater, Councilmember Joan Cathy chairs the HHSC, and I'm the co-chair. And every jurisdiction is represented in the county on that committee. And if you have questions about the process, the number of, as Romero said, the applications, you'll see these all go out to and have been awarded to the folks that are delivering basic needs, and they have the capacity to deliver basic needs to the people on the street. And I don't mean that literally on the street, but outside of the organizations. And Tom is on the phone. Commissioner Edwards, you have questions, sir?
Pass-through funding?
No, there's can you clarify, Tom, the funding source?
So this is one half of jurisdictions pledge 1/2 of 1% of their sales tax revenue to this fund. So all the jurisdictions contributed a portion of their sales tax revenue to this fund. Because I guess my question then would be, because we are reviewing all expenditures out of the general fund, because we're going to see a downturn and it's affecting all of the county operations, have we also taken that same scrutiny to this particular fund? Robin looks like she's going to.
Yeah.
Well, Robin does. I was waiting for Tom to respond, but go ahead, Robin.
I don't know that Tom would have the answer. So this is general fund money, and Thurston is part of an interlocal compact, if you will, the HHSC, where every jurisdiction has pledged to give 1/2 of 1% of their general fund sales tax toward this effort. And this is one of the items in your non-departmental appropriation, and you did review non-departmental, and this is not an item that the board chose to reduce or eliminate. If you wish to do so, then I would encourage you to have a conversation with the other jurisdictions, because that is an interlocal agreement that we have signed with them.
Okay, I guess my only concern would be that we do have that discussion with those jurisdictions because we seem to have a dollar amount assigned, and we might not be able to make that commitment along with what they contribute as well. So are we a little premature on moving forward with this without having maybe that discussion, and also if we're going to do a percentage of a reduction as part of our normal review of general fund expenditure, just so maybe the different groups that we're going to be coordinating with at least would know what they're going to get. You know, this is taking an estimation from pre-virus times, I believe, versus the unknown of post-virus times. Just trying to get it all to match, so we're all in this thing together.
So Tom, this is, we did put a couple applications on hold pending what comes in or doesn't come in sales tax wise. But is this based on funding yet to come in, or is it funding that has come in that's going to be distributed as of July 1?
So you're correct. The funding that we have put on hold is our 2163, our document recording fee funding. We'll be bringing those contracts to you probably in July as we wait to see what document recording revenue trends look like over the next month or two. So so the ones we put on hold were for those document recording fee revenue. Mm-hmm. The HHSC sales tax revenue was based on the 2019 sales tax collection, is how the number was based on, is my understanding. And Robin can correct me.
2018.
2018.
In the year we prepare the budget, we look at the prior year revenue to what we're going to pay in the future year. Sorry, the formula is a little complicated, but the amount calculated is based on 2018 revenue this year, and I think that we've already made that transfer to the Community and Housing Fund this year.
Yeah, I believe that transfer has been made already, so the expenditure hasn't incurred.
The expenditure from the general fund has been incurred.
Okay.
Just to follow up on that, I don't know, I think the governor's office is talking maybe a 20% reduction. I don't know what we're talking about, but I just like to make sure that we're covering all our bases ahead of time and we're not reacting to poor information, I guess, when we put this out. So I guess what I'm wondering about, I guess we're voting on something that's already been done. Is that what I'm hearing?
The transfer out of the general fund has already been contributed, and Tom would have to tell us if the contribution from the other jurisdictions has already been received. But I would encourage you, if you're going to
Is now joining the conference.
If you're going to change the contribution to the HHSC, you should have the conversation with the other jurisdictions about changing that contract.
Yeah, I suppose I'll leave that up to Commissioner Hutchings as far as coordinating that with Kathy, I suppose. I just want to make sure we're all in the game together if we're, that we don't all of a sudden end up with a major shortfall. 20% out of that fund would be a pretty good hit. I know the municipalities are also looking at reductions in their income on this issue. So I'm not making a particular recommendation. I guess at this point, I'm just bringing up a point, maybe to make sure that we get this right.
Well, I appreciate that perspective, and all the jurisdictions we've talked about at the HHSC meetings with the pandemic and the loss of sales tax, general sales tax revenue, general fund sales tax revenue, that it's going to impact each city, but it's also going to directly impact these nonprofits that depend on getting food to seniors and them as well. So it wouldn't be if there's a big downturn, it continues. It won't be even as much as $250,000 that we're doling out to 6 or 7 people or organizations rather. So we've had that talk, but not so much from the perspective of let's rethink redo the interlocal and reduce that 0.5%. But we're aware of what the impact is to the community as well. Commissioner Menser, any comments or questions?
No, it sounds like if the money's been contributed, then we're kind of okay. It may be a discussion we have to have for the next round based on kind of the fact that there's essentially a 2-year lag. It could create an issue. I agree with Commissioner Edwards. It's something to think about, but I think we're okay for this year, it sounds like.
Yeah, well, this year, yes. Hang on just a moment here. You just read that bottom one for you.
It may be an issue of not, it may not, the formula may not need to be tweaked, but just the way it's calculated, or the formula, or the base amount of, 0.5%, but we may need to tweak the formula by which we project that, in order to not shortchange organizations. I don't know. That's something we'd have to talk about.
the amount available will definitely go down with the loss of sales tax receipts.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
I would also add that during the Great Recession, the county and some of the jurisdictions did decrease the amount that was contributed to the HHSC. At that time, each jurisdiction had a fixed amount that they contributed, and they just reduced that fixed amount. And it was after that that we all agreed to a percentage rather than a certain amount. So there are options there.
Okay, Commissioner Edwards, thank you for bringing that up, and I will, I'll talk with, Council Member, I see him, Monroe, Council Member Joan Cathy. County Manager? Yeah.
It is a question for Robin. Maybe, do you think it will be an opportunity for you not to talk about the possibility of this funding can be take advantage of the CARES money? Without putting you on the spot, maybe we can have a side conversation on that to explore that option.
Sure. Yeah, we can certainly look into that. It will depend to the extent that it did or did not exist in our budget already.
Right. Yeah, and mainly I was thinking in terms of because all the allocations are related to respond to the emergency, as we know,
right,
for the most part.
To assist nonprofits, to the extent it is above the amount in our budget, I would say that yes, that would be available.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you for that. And now we're moving on to proclamations and awards. And let me see. Do we have any?
No, there are no proclamations and awards.
Yeah, it doesn't look like it. Okay. Advisory boards and commissions.
Yes. First, I'd like to introduce Mr. Thorning, who is online. We have a few items after this, but he's here to join the board today and answer any questions or concerns you may have.
So as a matter of background, commissioners, this is a request from the drainage district. And you receive a request to consider appointment of Mr. Tom Thorning. And this is for the Hopkins Drainage District, Ditch District. This is an elected position. And I believe the district would like for you to consider appointment of Mr. Thorning until the election occurs. And last week, when you reviewed this item, you requested to see if you could have a little conversation with Mr. Thorning, since you have not received any particular application from him. So here it is.
All right, the way to do this, I would imagine, this is really kind of unusual. Commissioner Edwards, do you have a question of Mr. Thorning?
When is the new election set to take place?
Oh, new election? That is a darn good question. We had our meeting on March 7th, where I was asked if I would like to join or become the third member, and I agreed to that. Election, I really don't know. With COVID situation, everything is so out of whack.
Isn't it just? Yeah. Commissioner
I
Master?
haven't even had a meeting yet.
So I do have a question for you.
All right, hang on just a second here, Romero.
I do have an answer to that question, I'm saying.
Oh, okay, you have an answer, go ahead.
Yeah, the next will be a general election in February 2022.
Okay.
February 2022?
Yeah, that's what Elizabeth provided.
Wow.
So the appointment should take until that time, until that election is in place.
So do you have any questions, Ty?
Yeah, if I may, I had, sir, you're kind of in an unusual spot, and usually we have just a basic application from the folks that apply to be on our commissions and advisory boards. And I was hoping maybe I could just tick through some of those questions that we would typically have in writing and just kind of hear just a couple sentences. That's okay, Mr. Chair?
Yeah, certainly, yes, please.
Okay, so generally we ask kind of where you live and what your occupation is. Start with that.
I live at 103rd and Case Road. My south property line butts up against Hopkins Ditch. I've been here for 21 years. Occupation, I own a sign manufacturing company.
Sign manufacturing. Okay. The next question is briefly describe why you'd like to serve in this role.
Well, there's obviously my section of the ditch is something I want to see taken care of. I understand that there is a third person needed to create quorum so that we can legally make decisions on what needs to be done. It was a position open. Nobody else seemed to really want to volunteer or sign up for the responsibility.
Yeah.
So I stepped up.
And that, just to follow up on that, because I know, like with my homeowners association, for example, you know, we have to fill the spots and nothing's really going wrong, but nobody really wants to do it, and we kind of have to twist each other's arms and we find someone to do the job. Versus somebody who's kind of fired up because they think something's going wrong and they want to, you know, make some changes. I was just curious, kind of, if you were stepping up because there was a need or you had a burning issue that you wanted to address as a commissioner.
No, the ditch seems to be, I mean, we have a very limited fund of money. So every 5 to 7 years, we get it dredged out in certain areas. We have ongoing beaver management, meaning trapping and dams being broken down to continue the flow of water. I would just like to see that can continue on, and without a third member, we are not, you know, binding by the rules that we need to.
Do you have any other volunteer experience that we should know about in Thurston County?
Oh, well, I volunteer at the Olympic Flight Museum, if that counts for anything. I've been a volunteer there for 20 years. I head up the work party group. My wife was the director of the museum for 18 years. I'm still heavily involved in that. Put on the air show once a year. I'll end up being ramp boss next year, which means I'll be in charge of all ground movement of aircraft and set up and tear down.
I'll pass it to my seatmates if they had any questions for you. Thank you.
So I think that's why your name is somewhat familiar, is because of the air show. And did you know Dell? I would think Dell, I can't think of the last, it's escaping me, that was involved for years in the air show as well. Anyway, and I see here that the two basic requirements are that you live within the district and are a registered voter, and the auditor has confirmed those requisites already exist, that you satisfy that. But I have no other questions of you, Mr. Thorning. Commissioner Edwards, any questions, sir, or comments?
Comments, and that is, thank you for stepping forward to take on this issue and tolerating our probably lack of knowledge, at least mine, about what this whole thing was all about. So thank you for stepping up and doing your community service. Really appreciate you doing that.
Certainly, thank you.
All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Thorning.
And you can go ahead and mute yourself and kill the video.
All right.
Or end the video.
But you can still listen in.
Oh, yeah, certainly, yeah, certainly. All right, so do we take, will that be today or is that gonna be next week, Romero, that we take action on Mr. Thorning?
It really is up to you. Maybe we can bring this item again for you to further discuss next week. I don't think it's a sense of urgency based on what you heard. I will give you an opportunity to think about this.
I think, from my perspective, Mr. Thorning has obviously gotten involved in this and stepped forward and kind of going the extra mile, if you will, to put himself out there. So I'd like to see us move forward and make that appointment now that he's come in and answered our questions.
And I'm in favor of just moving it and getting it off our plate, and so he can get on with his life as well. Commissioner Menser?
Yep, that's fine with me.
Ready to give a thumbs up? Okay. Thumbs up or down?
So I will bring an item for you to take an action next week.
Okay. But so far, we have 3 thumbs ups.
Yeah, I don't think we need any more discussion.
Thumbs up. Okay. We discuss Kevin Jensen's reappointment.
Yes, this is a new application to reappoint Kevin Jensen to the Agriculture Advisory Board. He's been on the board since 2014 and would like to continue to serve.
And this is a re-up, is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm good with Mr. Jensen. He's obviously he's an ag person, been involved for a while and wants to continue that involvement. I think we should commend those citizens that are willing to step forward.
Well, my ag is a 4th generation beef cattle rancher in South Thurston County, so I support that as well. And I have heard nothing derogatory or controversial at all surrounding Mr. Jensen, so I'm okay with him too. Commissioner Menser?
Yes, and I believe I am too. And the only question I had is just for Amy, I guess. Do we have other applicants that want that spot or that are sitting in a queue? I don't think we do on the Agriculture Advisory Board, but just to confirm that, I'd like to hear that.
No, we don't have any other applications for the Agriculture Advisory Board.
Okay, I'm comfortable to move Mr. Jensen if you guys are.
Yep. Okay, so we got that.
I will bring this item next week for your formal action.
All right. Go ahead, Amy.
And then lastly, another item that was reviewed last week from the Storm and Surface Water Advisory Board. We received a letter from Casey Kramer, chair of the board, with a couple of requests. One, to change Jacqueline Simmons' appointment from an at-large member to a District 2 member. Next, to appoint Carla Sabota to the then vacant at-large appointment. And then lastly, to appoint Britt Netterhood to the District 3 appointment.
In your packet, you do have a letter from Mr. Casey Kramer where they met, and I believe in April 23rd, 2020, where they went through all the different appointments, and here's the formal request for you to consider those appointments.
Right, we went through this last week.
I'm good with the proposed changes.
And Tris is out, is that right? He's term limited out, is that what I'm hearing?
Yes.
And I guess I'm questioning just, and that's fine with him. I mean, I guess there's term limits that go with this particular board and commission.
Yes, and
And
just term limits.
He's been on there quite a while. He's provided pretty good service to our community.
he does, and depending on the organization, they when they term out, they have to be gone for a year. I think a minimum, it depends on the organization, a year or 2 years, and they can reapply again. And I'm not sure what it is for this one.
Did we have any, I guess this question would be for the
clerk of the board, did we have any other applications that were not falling right in line with what we're talking about doing?
No, we have not
Okay,
received any others.
thank you.
Okay, so two of us, Commissioner Edwards, have a thumbs up to go ahead with this recommendation?
So just to conclude this item, you will see items next week for your formal appointments. One is on the Agricultural Advisory Committee, reappointment of Mr. Kevin Jensen. The next item you will see is appointment of the Hopkins Drainage District Number 2 of Thomas Thornton. And that will be until the next election. And the next items will be to reassign Ms. Jacqueline Simmons from the current member at large to a District 2, and new appointments on the Storm and Surface Water Advisory Board of Mr. Fred Netherhead to District 3, and Ms. Carla Sabota to a large position.
Okay. Perfect. Moving right along to our PIO. And we've got Megan in the house today.
Good morning, commissioners.
Good morning, we missed you.
Yeah, I've missed you guys too. It's nice being back here doing some other work other than the COVID response, which actually still takes up a majority of my time, is working with public health and getting COVID-19 response and recovery information out to the citizens. If people who are watching want to get updated information from the county, follow us on our Facebook and Twitter social media platforms. We post at least daily on the COVID-19 information. We also are doing a weekly newsletter called the Friday Five. It's in a pilot right now. The 6th one was sent out last Friday. It provides updates as well on COVID-19 as well as other activities that are happening around the county. So 5 of them each Friday. If anybody wants to sign up for that, go to our homepage and under the county news tab, you can click to subscribe and it goes straight to your email. It's being well received, so I foresee this happening longer than our July pilot end date. Do you have any questions for me?
Any questions or comments for Megan? Go ahead, Commissioner Edwards.
Once in a while, we get a report of numbers, so now that we've got this virus issue going on, and there's quite a public interest, are there increases in our numbers by any chance?
Well, as Shelley reported earlier last week, we had a 7-day stretch of 0 cases. And then we had 1 day of 4 cases and 1 of 1 case.
Oh.
No, I think Commissioner Edwards is asking how many
viewers.
Oh, viewers, okay.
I'm sorry.
I misunderstood the question.
Okay.
We are seeing a large spike in followers of our social media platforms as well as subscribing to the newsletter, which is great. We're seeing that with public health and emergency management social media as well, which means that people in our community are looking for reliable sources of information, which the county is a reliable source of information. So we really appreciate that we're seeing those increases in numbers.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Matt, go ahead. Who was talking? I interrupted someone. All right, Commissioner Menser? Oh, bless you.
Sorry.
Wow.
No, I'm good.
Okay. And how long are you back here in the courthouse for, Megan, before you have to go back?
My plan is to be here on Tuesdays.
Oh, it is? Okay.
Yeah, so that I can be here at least 1 day a week.
Wonderful. Well, I have nothing for you either at this point, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
And Romero, any legislative update?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Included in your packet is a document that I've been working with Deborah Manguia. And as you know, the governor most likely is going to be called a special session this year to address the impacts of the COVID-19 emergency. And we're trying to build a somewhat of a small agenda as to how the local legislators could help us go through this. And so there's a few items for your consideration, and this also will give me a perspective as to how I need to fill a survey. The WASAC has requested for each county to submit any particular legislative items that we would like to WASAC to support. And that survey is due this Friday, I believe. So I just want to engage the board in this conversation. Let me walk you through those items and hear your perspective, any questions that you may have, and any other additional items that you may consider. We should include this on this legislative session. The first one is related to reimbursable employer unemployment insurance. As you know, Thurston County is a self-insured when it comes to unemployment. And without knowing whether the county will be in the position to furlough employees or perhaps lay off employees down the road, the county will be in the position to having to pay the unemployed benefits for those employees. Under Section 2103 of the CARES Act, states are encouraged to interpret or amend their state unemployment compensation laws in a manner that provides maximum flexibility to reimbursing employers as it relates to timely payments, annual contributions, assessment, and penalties of interest. So that presents an opportunity as to how we can probably engage the legislature as to how they can provide some assistance to the self-insured, in this case, counties. So below that item is a proposed couple of options for your consideration. One is to delay payment, request to the legislature to delay payments liability to self-insuring organizations like Thurston County through at least 2022. And the second will be amend state law to assist reimbursable employers. That is item number one. Any questions on that?
No, sir.
Okay. So the next item is the federal payments to the state treasurer. And early, just before the legislature adjourned, and at that point is when the emergency was coming up, they passed a House Bill 2965, which is really set aside money, and the Department of Commerce said it gave the county $1 million, just close to $1 million to deal with this emergency. So on this proviso of this House bill states the federal funds should be maximized first before we can get to that commerce. So at this point, the CARES money has been set aside $15.7 million to the county. There is still a little bit of additional money. The OFM needs to be distributed to the counties. And this particular request is not for the Department of Commerce to take that money off the top of the next allotment and maybe just help us to keep the commerce money as initially was intended. So the ask in this case, it will be to work with WASAC to determine if there is a need to revise the state law to change the obligation for counties to reimburse the state and federal monies they have been used. In this case, the particular the commerce money. Any questions?
No, I don't have any on that. I'm good.
The next item, and this is, there's still a bit of a question mark. There's a couple of facilities planned, and this is related to give some flexibilities for projects related to the COVID-19 emergency, not to having to be included on the capital facilities plan. In the last couple of weeks, we have gone back and forth on a couple of emails with Robin included, as well as members of WASAC. And there appears to be not necessarily a requirement related to this. So this is an item that I need to flush the details out before we can actually be a formal request. So our understanding right now that every single project needs to be included on the capital facilities plan before we can start exercising any expenditures. It appears to be a difference of opinion from WASAC, whether that's a national requirement or not. So that is something that internally we need to have a legal opinion to see if that is the case or not. If in fact we conclude the county has perhaps an issue on this, we will include this as part of the legislative request for the special session. Any questions?
Yeah, go ahead, Commissioner Menzer, go ahead.
So our previous discussions, I thought that COVID-19 capital projects were kind of hamstrung by the fact that we have to have all this money spent basically, or a lot of I know there's different pots of money, but the one we were most focused on, the largest pot, had to be obligated by the, October 31st, which wasn't going to really give us any time to begin a capital project. So are there things that we're looking at doing that are coming from different funding sources that would be affected by this that I haven't heard? I guess my question is, what do we have in the queue for a COVID-19 capital project that this would relate to?
Last Friday, we sent an email to all the offices and departments to request applications related to the CARES money. And at that point, we'll have a good understanding of what they're looking for. So we'll be in a much better position to answer that question, Commissioner Menzer, when we receive those applications. But this is more of a preemptive question, and I believe Robin has some perspective on this.
We are working with the courts currently to assess if they need a larger space. And it's possible that what their requirements are for that space would be construction that would have to be on the CFP before we do it. It depends on what it is that we determine the courts need. But whatever that is, we know we'll have to put it in place very quickly. So that's my main concern, is that we be able to do that and not have a limitation for the CFP.
Okay.
Yeah, and as an example, I guess it would be something like maybe if we lease space from maybe the Capitol Mall or something, that we might have to do a remodel or that type of thing. That's about it.
That's right.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, moving right along.
In the last item, this is most of those items are more of not just Thurston County, and that's where we like to engage WASAC. And the last item is at this point, because the response to the emergency is moving so fast that it became an issue as to how we're going to be able to respond. And for instance, this is related to the state has been told the local health jurisdictions will be responsible for technical assistance and enforcement compliance for the additional health requirements of businesses when we start opening the economy back up again. Shelley Slater is already forming a team as to how we can provide some technical assistance. But this issue becomes larger when it becomes manufacturers and larger companies is going to be looking as to the county to provide some guidance related to this. And the state, at least from our perspective at this point, is pushing that to the local jurisdictions without any additional funding. So it becomes somewhat of, I'm going to use this very loosely, an unfunded mandate. And also the labor and industries needs to be part of this conversation as well, because they need to provide that guidance and oversight. So what this request is really is working with WASAC and the Association of Cities. They will start providing a little bit of more instruction in terms of fiscal, how they can probably backfill the requirements of that. That is an item for your consideration. And so I think Shelley's probably still online. If she can probably better verbalize this item, which by the way is not in this list. This just came up, and I want to make sure that Shelley had the opportunity to provide you that perspective.
Thank you, Ramiro. I think you covered it very well. This is a concern shared by many local health jurisdictions, and we have passed on our collective concern to Jamie Bodden, who is the executive director of Wasalfo, an affiliate of WASAC. And I know that this is a matter that they are paying attention to and working to provide further information and guidance. We do know that Washington State Labor and Industries does provide technical assistance as well as enforcement for many industries and companies, and they will have a role in this. However, we were told that they have a limited capacity. There's only 100 throughout the entire state of Washington. And so businesses right now are in desperate need of guidance and have been contacting our local public health department, every staff member, our phone number, many, many times a day. We have extremely high call volume right now, as well as help requested from our local Chamber of Commerce's and Economic Development to help to address what businesses are seeking in order to help support them in reopening. And then the question remains as to once businesses are opened, whose authority and responsibility will it be to ensure that those employees and members of the public are safe and compliant with the requirements as set forth by the governor's office. So things have moved very quickly. Right now, we're working with the governor's office, working with Wasalfo and WASAC, and we do have 3 staff led by our own Art Starry, who is designated to be providing support to the businesses that are calling us now. Any questions?
Sounds like all of it's more to come.
Yeah, that's a good question.
And this is just a request that we would like to probably bring to WASAC and as to how they can probably have a consolidated request, because this affects to all counties in a way, all the items that I'm suggesting to you. I just want to make sure that I walk you through some of the items they were planning to submit. But if you have any heartburn in any of the items, let me know. If you have any items that you'd like us to add, also let me know. The last item in here is something that you have already tracked, and this is creating or providing fiscal flexibility to existing revenues. Back then it was House Bill 2006 and 2017, and also House Bill 1829 in the 2020 session, which provided the flexibility to counties related to the levy that left and supplanting of existing revenue funds, which makes the Veterans Assistance Levy and the Developmental Disability and Mental Health Levy separate from the property tax levy. When we reviewed this item, as you may recall, and I think we were very excited that perhaps the legislature is going to pass, it would have provided flexibility or additional revenue in the general fund to just about $1.9 million at that time. And that's what we would like to bring to the special session, because again, this is an opportunity for counties to have more flexibility in their current allocation of funding. Any questions?
I don't have a question, but I have a comment. I'm glad to see that WASAC and the AWC, Association of Washington Cities, are working collaboratively in coordinating this for their purposes as well. Commissioners, questions or comments?
No.
No? Okay.
Related to your comment, Commissioner Hutchins, I like to give credit to Deborah Manguia, because she has been working really diligently in the last 2 weeks, and she is the one who's bridging that conversation between WASAC in the Association of Washington Cities.
I should have known. She is a
Yeah.
superhero.
I know that she's listening, so I just want to make sure that I acknowledge her.
Hi, Deborah. You're a superhero. Thank you. All right, takes care of that one then. That's it for legislative update, Romero?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I've got, rounding up, I've got 10:25. We're going to take a 15-minute break. We'll be back at 10:40. Thank you very much. We're in recess.
Okay, you're on, Commissioner.
Oh, perfect timing. Thank you.
Good job.
All right, welcome back to the Board of County Commissioners budget, or not budget, work session and agenda setting for May 26, 2020. And we're continuing now. We're going to get into our briefings and public hearing decisions that are pending. And so number one, I'll repeat, number one is a resolution to approve a resolution by the Thurston County Board of Health requesting a variance for Thurston County to move into phase 2 of the governor's Safe Start Plan.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioners. Let me frame this, but let me walk you through what is included in your packet. In your packet is a copy of the resolution that we're going to walk you through here in a minute. What it is included in that resolution. It also included in your packet is with starting with a transmittal letter from the Board of County Commissioners. And also there is a copy of the entire application that Shelley and her staff has put together in order to meet the requirements of moving into phase 2. I'm not expecting you to read the entire application, but just to give you a perspective as to what that is. Also in the back of that application includes 2 letters, one from the Capital Medical Center and one from Providence St. Peter's Hospital as part of that. So we discussed this a little bit procedurally as to what needs to take place. And so let me give you a little bit of the history, where we are and where we need to be after you may consider taking this action. So on February 29, 2020, the Governor of the State of Washington issued a proclamation, 20-05, proclaiming a state of emergency for all counties throughout the state of Washington as a result of the coronavirus, COVID-19. The Governor on March 23, 2020, extended the state of emergency and established the stay at home, stay healthy order, which became effective on April 6, 2020. On April 2nd, 2020, the Governor announced a month-long extension of the stay home, stay healthy order. They go through May 4, 2020. On May 1st, 2020, the Governor announced an extension of the stay-at-home order until May 31st, 2020, and provided the Safe Start Washington, which is a phased approach as to how he's planning to start the recovery and open up the economy in the state of Washington. Under that, the Governor provided initial 10 counties as to how they can apply for variance as to move quicker from phase 1 to phase 2 out of the 4 phases. And at that time, Thurston County was not eligible based on that criteria provided by the Governor because only those counties they had a population of less than 75,000. Last Tuesday, on May 19, 2020, the Governor outlined additional variances for counties who could apply for to move quicker from phase 1 to phase 2, as long as they meet specific requirements. In this case, is having fewer than 10 new cases per 100,000 population, and over the last 14 days. Thurston County meets that criteria. As a result of that, the health officer, Dr. Yu, provided you with a letter, which was dated May 20th, 2020. And the Board of Health, which just happens to be the 3 of you, met on a special meeting on Friday where you pass a resolution. That resolution is H05-2020, in which you, as the Board of Health, concurred with the recommendation of Dr. Yu to move Thurston, to apply for a variance to have, to move Thurston County from phase 1 to phase 2 of the 4-phase approach the Governor has laid out. The next step in the process is obviously to have a complete application, which again, Shelley has already, and her staff has worked diligently in the last few days to make sure that everything is correct, cross all the Ts and dot all the Is. I'm not expecting you to read this application, but I encourage you to read this at a later date because it's very comprehensive and it outlines as to what is it that we need to do in order to meet the criteria to move into phase 2. So there's a couple of steps that needs to occur. This item for your consideration for you today is to consider passing a resolution adopting the Thurston County Board of Health Resolution number H05-2020 in order for us to go ahead and submit an application for a variance to move into phase 2 as soon as feasible. That is one of the last steps that we need to take in this process. And as soon as the board considers this action, then we'll move into the process of getting enough signatures from you and packaging the application in a way that they could be submitted this afternoon if the board approves this resolution before you. What phase 2 really means. Phase 2 expands on the modifications to restrictions affecting businesses and permits opening the following activities under phase 2. Open the remaining manufacturing that is not open under phase 1. Also opens all construction phases that is not included under phase 1. Restaurants, taverns can be opened with less than 50% capacity, and they can only host a table size for no larger than 5 people and at any given table. No bar seating is allowed. Hair and nail salons are open. Retail, in-store purchases allowed with restrictions. Real estate, professional services, offices-based businesses are allowed to open, although telecommuting continues to be encouraged. In-home domestic services, nannies and house cleaners also open. Pet grooming and essential travel, and limited non-essential travel also part of this phase 2. And again, this is I know that we have received some emails as to why we haven't gotten quicker to this point. And again, as you see, the application is very comprehensive. And we needed to make sure that we cross all the T's and dot all the I's just to make sure that we have a successful application. And that's where we are at this point. We're providing you with a very comprehensive, successful application for you to consider submitting. And for you is to take an action, consider taking an action to approve this resolution. And again, it's one of the key steps that we need to meet outlined in the governor's action waiver to move into phase 2. Questions?
All right, questions or comments?
I am ready to move forward.
Commissioner Mensah, any question or comments before we move forward?
Nope, I'm ready to present the motion when you're ready.
I'm ready for a motion, sir.
Shelley, Dr. Yu, would like to add anything?
Oh, Dr. Yu, I'm sorry. Or Shelley? Okay. All right, ready for a motion.
I'd move to approve a resolution adopting the Thurston County Board of Health's resolution number H-05-2020, requesting a variance to implement phase 2 modifications of the governor's Safe Start plan.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve a resolution by the Thurston County Board of Health requesting a variance for Thurston County to move into phase 2 of the governor's Safe Start plan. Any discussion?
No, sir.
Nope. All right. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you, commissioners. And time is of the essence. So Elizabeth is listening, so I will send those the resolutions for her final review and signature. And then I will circulate for your signature, hopefully after we're done with this meeting. And because those are the signed resolutions need to be part of this application packet that will be submitted this afternoon.
Well, I know the three of us will be around to sign that.
Okay.
Thank you.
I believe the sheriff will take this and deliver it personally if we need to do that.
I think the Director of Public Health Social Services will take care of that in good hands.
Okay.
Beautiful, thank you. All right, number 2, amendment to the yard debris collection site service agreement.
Yeah, you reviewed this item last week, Commissioners, and this is the last, what I call the third leg of this tool related to the solid waste contracts. You had an executive session on April 21st, 2020, which that time, Jennifer Walker, the Director of Public Works, give you a perspective. They would like to align the yard debris collection with the 2 other contracts that we have currently related to solid waste. The intent of this amendment, and again, is to extend this contract for another 3 years with the option of extending 2 extensions, 1 each year for a total of 5 years in need be. And again, we just aligned the 3 pieces of this contract, and the next steps will be to issue a request for proposals. We will receive a request for proposals, and at that point, then hopefully we can negotiate a single contract that will cover all the needs in solid waste. Any questions on this? And I know that Marrow is also waiting in here if you have any specific questions related to this proposal. But again, you reviewed this item last week.
Any questions?
No, sir.
Nope, okay. Ready. So I'm ready for a motion, Commissioner Mensah.
Okay,
On number 2.
I move to approve amendment number 2 to the yard debris collection site service agreement between Thurston County and Harold LeMay Enterprises Incorporated, extending the term of the agreement to May 1st, 2023, and authorize the Public Works Director to execute the amendment.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the amendment number 2 to the yard debris collection site service agreement between Thurston County and Harold LeMay Enterprises. Any further discussion?
No, sir.
Nope. All in favor say aye.
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 Aye. That motion carries. And number 3, Ramiro.
Number 3, this is an item you have discussed in length. I believe in this item is for you to consider awarding the contract to Rutsky
Number 3,
Incorporated.
Ramiro.
Number 3 is an item you have discussed in length. I believe in this.
Uh-oh.
I have the power to mute people here.
Good, thank you.
Who is with MCALLIL? Okay, so I'll continue to mute that person. So, and again, on May 4th, 2020, the county received 14 bids. And the low bidder was again Rutsky Incorporated of Vancouver, Washington. And the low bid was $979,418.91. And the department is for you to consider awarding this contract for a total of $1,163,549.66, which includes 10% contingency to cover the costs during construction. The budget for this project this year was $1,416,000, and so this is below the approved budget. So before you consider taking an action on this, having a discussion, we received a letter from a citizen making a statement that perhaps the road fund could not fund any buildings or any type of facilities in the county. And so I also I provided a perspective at the high level last week in terms of the County Road Administration Board is the one who sees the expenditures. It provides an audit on a yearly basis for the road fund. And we have not received any audit funding from the County Road Administration Board. So nor we have received a funding from the state auditor when they review the expenditures of the road fund. However, I did reach out to one of your prosecuting attorneys, Karen Hurwitz, to make sure that you have a legal perspective whether those funds are really eligible to use, road funds are eligible to pay for this project. So included in your pocket, if you may see, you see a perspective in which in so many different words, that this is not a new issue. In fact, it has been litigated in the past. And the Attorney General's provided an opinion related to the use of road funds to facilities related to public works. And it states the housing of county road equipment is clearly an expenditure for the maintaining of machinery equipment, quote unquote, within the meaning of the RCW 36.82070. She also see a lawsuit between the state and in this case King County and Marrow, and which outlines really the same question. This coupled with the broad phrase within the RCW 36.82070 and any other proper county road purposes found in the same statutes leaves little room for doubt of the question. Finally, RCW 36.75.040, parentheses 1, cited and quoted at the outset of this opinion expressly authorized the building of the structures necessary for the administration of the county roads. Evidence further the legislative intent that the erection of such structures is a county road purpose, and close unquote. So I believe I want to be responsive to the citizens' concern. And again, obviously I'm not an attorney, I'm not here to give a perspective. That this is a perspective issued by one of your prosecuting attorneys in which addresses the citizens' concern about the use of road fund for this particular building. I just want to close the loop on that.
So reference this, the citizen, does she or he have a copy of this?
No, but we can
reference
make
to them?
There's a public record, so we can make that available.
Okay, thank you. Any questions, commissioners or comments? Go ahead, Commissioner Edwards.
I'm satisfied with the interpretation, that's fine with me. My concern is here that with this amount of money, we could do 25 miles of chip seal. I've asked in the past why we can't buy dry sand from a vendor. And I've never received an adequate response as to why that would not suffice, especially while we are short in our road fund due to other strains on the road fund. I can't support this because I just think it's not the right timing, but I'm also questioning if we could purchase dried sand when we need it. I don't know, considering global warming, it's not supposed to freeze anymore anyway, but that's what sand is used for, is when the roads are icy. So I've not received any information what a contract might cost to get dry sand from any one of the local vendors that deal in sand and gravel in our community. And that would also help our community. Money expended in our community is beneficial to the community. So I can't support this issue until we get to the very bottom that there are no other options besides doing this. So that's just my position. I wanted to state that. Thank you.
Commissioner Menzer.
So, yeah, I want to thank Ramiro or Jennifer or Karen or all three of you for closing this loop, because I've been thinking about this over the week and I had decided that I really wasn't comfortable moving forward until I got clarification on the legal issue. I the citizen who wrote in thought it was really clear that it wasn't permitted, and that wasn't consistent with my opinion, but I did see how it could be argued both ways, and I wanted that clarification. And I did agree with the citizen that I raised this last week, and the county manager gave some information that was relevant. It was relevant to the answer, but it really wasn't the complete answer that I was looking for. And this email from Ms. Horwitz is the answer I was looking for. So based on the Attorney General opinion, I'm very comfortable that it's a legal expenditure. The merits of it, we've gone back and forth on multiple meetings, and I'm not really going to go deeply into that. I basically will just summarize by saying that, the road fund has a number of priorities that are important to getting our work of public works done. And our director of public works has assured me multiple times that this is a top priority for the work that needs to get done. And it's an appropriate expenditure, and it's a legal expenditure. So I'm at this point comfortable moving forward.
Excuse me. All right, and this is a topic that we've two different boards have discussed over the last couple of years, and each director, the interim public works director and the current one, have spoken to the need for it and the priority for it, and we put these people in place knowing what they're talking about, knowing how the public works director, Jennifer Walker, she knows what she needs, and she knows what needs to be done. And this is the priority that she has placed on this. And I give her a great deal of credibility, knowing that's her business. It's not mine. I'm not a county engineer, I'm not a road engineer. And so, again, like Commissioner Mentor said, having the legal opinions, multiple legal opinions from the Attorney General's office, and Karen Horowitz weighing in on this, I'm comfortable with the legality of it. So we're not running afoul of the law. But I'm ready to move this on down the road, and no pun intended, and get this thing done so we can finally get on with business. So with that, is there a motion?
Yes, I would move to award a contract not to exceed $1,163,549.66, which includes the base bid, Washington State sales tax, and up to a 10% contingency for the Tilly Sand and Materials Storage South Campus Parking Lot Project, number 25567/25603, to Rochchi Incorporated of Vancouver, Washington, and authorize the Assistant County Manager to sign the contract and approve any change orders due to unforeseen conditions only, not for changes in scope, that do not exceed the 10% contingency.
And I'll second that. Any further discussion before we vote?
Yes.
Go ahead, Commissioner Edwards.
I do not think it's out of order to delay this vote until we get answers to things like how much would it cost to buy dry sand from any one of the vendors that are available. How could that fit into this picture? I just think it's responsible. It's a responsible question to how we use our tax dollars that are paid in. We're going into some tight times. I still think we ought to delay awarding this contract until we can get every possibility answered as to how we might save money. Staff has made this recommendation, I agree. But as you all know, I don't always go along with all the recommendations. So I'm just, I'm adamantly opposed to this, and I think it's irresponsible of the board to move forward without having all the answers. That's my statement.
And I'll wait till Romero catches up here. Okay. And so we have talked about this over the years, and alternatives as well, and why it's a priority and what are the options. And I'm not interested at all in delay. I'd rather just, I can vote on something rather than just against it. So all in favor, say aye.
Commissioner?
Oh, yes, sir.
I guess we have talked about it. I'd just like to point out, we've never had an answer of an alternative expenditure, how much that would cost to provide the same service to our roads, hence to our citizens, by doing something other than just moving forward spending this money. So I just want to point that out. Thank you.
Point taken. Thank you. All in favor of approving the Tilly Sand and Material Storage bid award, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you. And
So the next
number
item,
4.
yeah, the next item, you have reviewed this item as well last week, and for your consideration is to approve Public Works, to authorize Public Works to submit an application for $2,920,000, and to supplement the existing funding that we have for Butler Creek crossing at French Road, and also for Green Cove Culvert along the Country Club Road. These are grants coming from the Salmon Recovery Board, and is administered by the Recreation and Conservation Office, RCO. This is an interesting requirement. Under normal circumstances, we can apply for any particular grant opportunity, but this particular grant requests the legislative authority authorizing moving forward with the application. And again, this too is related to the Fish Passage Enhancement Program. And as you've heard in the past, when the board committed to fund this program with the real estate excise tax 2, RE 2, also provided direction for staff to look for opportunities as to how we can secure outside funding using the RE dollars as a seed money. And this is again one of the examples as to what staff has done to follow up with the board's direction.
Okay, questions or comments?
No, sir.
Nope. Okay, is there a motion?
I move to approve the resolution to apply for $2,920,000 to supplement existing funding for Butler Creek crossing at French Road Northwest and $300,000 for design only for replacement of Green Cove Culvert on Country Club Road from the Salmon Recovery Funding Board administered through the State Recreation and Conservation Office.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve an application for a grant from the Salmon Recovery Funding Board for Butler Creek crossing at French Road Northwest and Green Cove Culvert on Country Club Road. Any further discussion? No? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That motion carries. Thank you. And number 5 is the week of the voucher list for the week of May 11, 2020.
Yeah, for your consideration, taking action on that, commissioners.
Okay. Are there any questions regarding the vouchers?
No.
Nope. Okay.
I'll move to approve the voucher list for the week of May 11, 2020 for a combined amount of $1,947,863.68.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the voucher list for the week of May 11, 2020. All in favor say aye.
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 Aye. The motion carries. Thank you. That takes care of that piece, and now we're getting into the commissioner's items, and the first one is Public Health Emergency Response Plan.
Yeah, I know Shelley is in here, and I give you a large printout just now of some information, so we're going to go through that here in a minute. But let me frame the conversation a little bit of a high level. And this is related to the CARES money. The county was assigned $15.7 million. And a couple of weeks ago, we engaged a conversation with the board in which the board approved a process as to how we need to move forward and making sure that we maximize the money allocated to the county in direct response to the COVID-19 emergency. At that point, you decided to set aside $1 million out of that pot of money, and that $1 million will be for outside needs. I'm working with Jenica Machado, and hopefully we can organize a presentation by the Thurston Strong group and also by United Way, and how they're gonna be presenting a plan for you to consider allocating money out of the $1 million. So that's the outside funding. Also, you make sure you stated that perhaps that is a set aside, not necessarily set in stone, and that can change depending on the request. For the remainder, 14.7, we already incurred expenditures that were going to be asked the Department of Commerce to reimburse. And so far at that point was about $1.7 million that we set aside for past expenditures that we're planning to request for reimbursement. That will put us down to just about $13 million. And at that point, the board went to see what else can we do with that money. And I laid out a process at that time that we're going to be sending a request for applications to all the offices and departments. And that request was sent this past Friday with a form as to how they can apply with specific criteria. And we already have an internal team as to how they're going to be reviewing those proposals just to make sure they're viable, sustainable, and doable by October 31st, 2020. And as a result of that review, the committee will submit proposals for the board to take an action. So that was the internal process. But also we knew the pressures as to how we need to put ourselves in the position to be successful, as to how the county moves into phase 2, phase 3, and eventually to phase 4. It requires a lot of effort from public health and social services. So the recommendation for you today, and Shelley will walk you through this, what is entailed on this proposal, is for you to consider taking out of the $13 million that you set aside internally and allocate to public health to make sure that we meet the demands of what we need to do in order to contact tracers, isolation and quarantine, as well as testing requirements that we need to do to support the application that we're going to be submitting this afternoon in general terms. So without getting to the numbers, that's the premise of this conversation. But again, the key of this point is out of $13 million that you set aside for internal uses, I will strongly encourage the board to take aside a set dollar amount, put it aside to support public health and services needs, and then the rest will be through an application process that I just described to you. Charlie?
Thank you very much, Marrow. That was an excellent introduction. One thing that I would like to start with is to review the capabilities and capacity required of our local health jurisdiction and our community in this response in the coming year through at least March 2020. And then I will highlight some of the funding sources that we have in addition to CARES Act funding, and describe the FTEs that we need to accomplish the work that we have ahead of us. So as Romero mentioned, part of the phase 2 and beyond requirements are that public health has local capacity and capabilities in several key areas. One of those is testing. You've heard me talk a lot in my updates about increasing our level of testing, ensuring we have adequate levels of testing in our community to include access to underserved, uninsured, and low-income populations in our community. Currently, we are very fortunate to have Providence St. Peter Hospital and Providence Medical Group operating a drive-through clinic for testing that is open and free to the community. They've notified me in our conversations that they plan to discontinue this service as of June 20th, due in large part to the expense of this and also to their staffing availability, as the personnel assigned to operate the testing site need to return to their regular medical jobs. And so if Thurston County is to maintain our levels of testing to the community and ensuring that we have proper access and availability, then we will need additional funding to maintain that. And that amount that we have for testing is approximately $1.3 million. And that is over the next year that we anticipate needing to operate community-based testing, either through contracting with Providence or another federally qualified health center or other entity, or having public health be able to support that effort. So that is one area that we need to ensure that's very critical to the ongoing success of our economic recovery, and helps to support us in our requirement to quickly be able to identify people that have COVID-19 so that we can isolate and quarantine them. Which leads me to the next requirement that we have, which is to have adequate isolation and quarantine facility in Thurston County. Right now, we have a isolation and quarantine site that is operated by Thurston County through a contract with a local motel. We are currently on a 30-day renewable contract for this hotel that sets aside up to 116 beds if needed. We need to maintain this capacity over the coming year. This is particularly important for those that do not have anywhere else to go. And the effort to maintain an isolation and quarantine site really is a very high and comprehensive level of effort, regardless of the number of guests that we have. Keely mentioned in her report earlier that we had 3 guests at our isolation and quarantine site. That requires 24/7 round-the-clock staffing, as well as comprehensive basic needs and supportive services to include meal delivery, laundry, cleaning, case management, healthcare, all the needs of guests at our isolation and quarantine facility. The cost for isolation and quarantine is approximately $3.2 million. That includes all of those support services and basic needs, as well as staffing. And going forward, we do need to request additional FTEs to support this effort. We need approximately 10 people in order to operate a 24/7 schedule to safely operate the facility. In addition, for those that are on home isolation and quarantine that are able to be at home, we need to ensure that we have wraparound case management supportive services available for people and their entire household. Going forward in phases 2 through 4, instead of everyone staying at home, we will be aggressively ensuring that people who are identified as COVID positive very quickly within 24 hours and their close contacts within 48 hours are isolated and quarantined. And that will include their entire household along with them who may have been exposed. Many families are already struggling in our economy, and we know that it'll be an increased burden for people to stay home for 14 days or longer, their entire household. So we need to ensure that we're able to provide the support that they need through community health workers, as well as incentives and financial resources to help them stay there. That's going to be very important to our recovery and not having to dial back to another phase. So I mentioned investigation and contact tracing. That is another key area that we have to ensure we have sufficient capacity. For our population, we're required to have 43.5 disease investigators and contact tracers dedicated to COVID-19 going forward. Currently, we are very fortunate that we have many volunteers and staff from other programs and departments that are able to support our efforts, and we have 48 people trained to do this work. That includes our existing staff, and just to remind you, when we started before COVID-19, we have a total of 3 disease investigators that also do contact tracing of over 100 notifiable conditions, and they've had to pause that work, which is statutorily required, to fully focus on COVID-19. So going forward, we're going to need to hire additional staff to ensure that we have the capabilities to go forward in the event that we have a surge in COVID-19 cases. Because we're utilizing volunteers and people from other sectors, we can't be assured that in phases 2 through 4 that we will be able to use those staff that we've been able to use now. So we will need approximately 12 additional FTEs to support investigation and contact tracing going forward. We also need to make sure that we have the capacity to be able to respond to congregate care settings. This is also a component of our phase 2 application when it comes to outbreak investigations and testing. Keely mentioned in her report that we had 2 testing events, and we also have a strike team that is trained to be able to go into a long-term care facility, homeless shelter, jail setting, or workplace to be able to do investigations in a large outbreak, or even in a small outbreak, which is defined as 2 or more linked positive cases in any one facility. So staff need to be trained and ready to respond immediately to go in and quickly be able to test all residents and staff in these facilities and continue to do surveillance in these high-risk populations by offering things like ongoing testing clinics targeted to the special needs of those populations. Because an outbreak in those particular populations could put tremendous strain on not only our public health system, but also on our healthcare system, it's very important that we continue to ensure that we have the capacity to do that, ready to go. Additionally, Ramiro mentioned earlier in his legislative report about our concerns that we had about being able to support our business community in the economic phase of recovery as they learn how to plan for safe reopening for their employees and the public, and also be able to respond to complaints and provide technical assistance and support in enforcement going forward. So we need 3 additional FTEs to be able to support in our environmental health division to expand upon the work that the staff already does when they work with restaurants and recreational facilities. So we also have a request for that. So there are many other services and staff that we need to support the overall effort, to include communications. That's very key in our ability to safely move forward, as well as ensuring that we are tracking the data and that we have the support staff needed to be successful. So overall, we have identified needs of $7,589,000. $7,589,000. Yes, that's correct. Sorry, I had to double check my numbers there. And we have identified over $18 million in available funding that we have coming in, not only the Coronavirus Relief Fund, also known as the Treasury Act funds that Ramiro was referring to when we started this item, but we also have funding through CDBG that is a federal funding source that has very specific criteria. We're working with our regional jurisdictions to decide how to invest those funds that are specifically for COVID-related activities, some of which could be eligible to cover the costs of some of the requirements that I just shared with you. We do have an allocation that's federal funds passed through the state from Health and Human Services, as well as a Washington State Department of Health allocation. We're also anticipating a grant passed through the state from the CDC that's specifically to support disease investigation staff over the next 2 years. We know that there will be FEMA funds. We don't know how much, and those have to be dollars of the last resort. And I know Robin is here to provide her expertise on what is allowed on all of those, for all of those sources of funds. And then finally, we also have Washington State Department of Commerce EHG grant that we received very early on in March that we had to get out the door very quickly to support our homeless response system in being able to achieve social distancing requirements and other public health requirements in order to safely operate shelters and respond to the hygiene needs, as well as other support services for those experiencing homelessness. And we will have already expended the majority of those funds, and we will need to continue to support that system going forward in the next year until we have a vaccine or a treatment. I know that was a lot of information, very fast. I will pause now for any questions that you have.
I'm sure we'll have questions. Commissioner Everts, go ahead.
Is the hospital laying people off? I've heard that St. Pete's is having some cutbacks up there. Is that right?
Yes, that is correct. They have had to furlough some of their staff.
And we're still working with the EDC on some of this. Have they been involved in any of the information that you've just passed on, for an example, this morning, just in the last few minutes?
My
Thurston Strong group with EDC.
Yeah. So when I mentioned the environmental health staffing required to support business economic recovery, there is a group that we have established that we have assigned to work with Thurston Strong, as well as the EDC and Chamber Foundations and our own Jenica Machado to collaborate on helping to develop further assistance to our business community and reopening safely going forward. Also,
okay, go ahead.
Sorry, I also was a speaker on the webinar last week with the Thurston County Chamber and EDC and provided them information on these different requirements that we have as a public health system.
How many FTEs are we talking about? And are they going to be part-time? Are they going to come with an end date? What's the kind of long-range plan? Because we run out of funding in the short range, so are we considering that, I guess? And is there a chance that we could hire out to, say, a private contractor like St. Pete's, maybe to continue keeping some of their folks on the payroll so they don't have to lay people off, and they could continue with some of the testing needs that we have and already kind of are the professional folks that we need in place, and just help them to continue functioning until they get kind of back up to speed, if you will, because I know during this whole downturn where they were not allowed to have elective surgery, it really put a crimp on their revenue coming in, along with some of the other healthcare operations around clinics and such as well. So could you comment on any of that information, please?
Yes, absolutely. Excellent question, sir. In regards to the last comment that you made regarding working with Providence on continuing to help to support staff that they may have furloughed, that is definitely on the table. We're actively engaged in conversations with Providence leadership. I have a conversation with the CEO at least once weekly, and we have a small group that is assigned to work on that particular issue. So that would be ideal for us, is to be able to contract with a healthcare provider to be able to continue to do that testing and be able to provide financial support to do so. In terms of how many total FTEs that we need, we have 37.4 that we have identified that are needed.
And are there ending dates on those?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, thank you. I knew that there was another part of your question. Yes, these would all be temporary hires. As you know, the Coronavirus Relief Fund has to be expended by October 31st of 2020. So we would be seeking your approval to be able to extend temporary positions through 12/31 and use the time period between 10/31 and 12/31 with our additional funding that we have through Health and Human Services in the Washington State Department of Health. And we've been able to determine that we would have sufficient funding to be able to cover that gap. So the positions would be through 12/31, with the exception of the CDC grant funded position, which is a 2-year, very restrictive funding amount that must be for a disease investigator.
Okay, Commissioner Menser, go ahead.
Shelley, the second to last entry on the spreadsheet, are you looking at the same spreadsheet that we have?
I'm not sure if I am or not, but I know it pretty well at this point, so fire away.
Second to last entry is emergency response, multiple funds, PHSS, IMT staff, $670,000. Can you unpack that for me? What
Yes.
that's about?
Yes, absolutely. So our incident management team has been activated since February 6th. And during that time period, we've had about 50 people full-time working on the incident management team. They do rotate in and out to provide relief, but we expect that we will continue to have our incident management team activated full-time for the rest of the year. And during that time, people are not able to do their regular jobs for the most part. There are some positions on our IMT that are less than full-time, but people serve in different positions on the IMT that support our overall response effort. So that includes things such as operations, planning, finance, and other areas that help us to respond and prepare for an upcoming surge of COVID-19. So we expect that we will continue to need staff dedicated to this role, and that will mean that they won't be able to serve in their regular job. And so we'll need to be able to pay them in a different way. And so that's what that number reflects.
Is that it?
That's all I have.
Okay. Shelley, I'm looking at, excuse me, Fund 1400, the vulnerable populations. And it's homeless services, and we're looking at 1.2 million. Supporting community agencies to maintain social distancing, CDC requirements for shelters, unsheltered populations, and sanitation and portable stations. But my questions are, number one, is that just for homeless settings or for all congregate facilities?
Fund 14 is our housing and homeless response fund, and that amount is just for our homeless response community and agencies. That is not for long-term care facilities.
So looking at then, if this is just for homeless services contracts for community agencies, 1.2, can you tell me what that will cover? Because I'm looking at maintain social distancing and CDC requirements for shelters, unsheltered populations. That's a lot of money. What are we doing with it, or what's going to be done with it?
Yes, so that is the number that Tom Webster provided to me as what he anticipates is going to be needed as soon as July 1st to support the changes that had to be made to our existing shelter and support system for the homeless population. So because of the contagiousness of COVID-19, congregate shelter settings where you have many people in one space is very dangerous to a highly vulnerable population. So what we had to do early on with the first allocation from Commerce funds in order to prevent an outbreak in that population was to give additional funding to our existing contracted providers to be able to expand their capacity. So that included things like moving the interfaith work shelter to a 24/7 shelter so that people would not be out during the day going to multiple services. And when we were shut down, there weren't services. But even when we are open, because that is a highly vulnerable population, they fall under the stay home, stay healthy. And therefore, if they don't have a home, we need to provide some place for them to be. So things like 24/7, when you heard earlier the report that Keely gave about the 14 families that are in a hotel, that was because they could not be accommodated in our existing family shelter safely with the amount of space that they had for social distancing, and because there are high risk people within that population. So we had to provide some motel voucher support for those agencies to be able to accommodate those families going forward, especially as we have a cold weather expected in the fall and winter as we do every year. It's going to be even more important that we don't have people crowded in small spaces, and oftentimes we really rely on places like church basements and things like that to be able to accommodate many people. So we have to make some changes. We also allocated funding and need to continue to allocate funding to make sure we have hygiene services available for those that are unsheltered in encampments. So ensuring that we have porta potties, hand washing stations, hand sanitizers, outreach for supplies and other things. So there's a very comprehensive list. I can provide you much more detail. Tom can provide that. But I do feel that our early investment and very quick action in implementing those measures has helped to prevent an outbreak that we've seen happen in many other communities that didn't have the opportunity to do that. So I think it's going to be very important going forward, especially given the early conversations that you had regarding expected tax revenue reductions that provide regular support to this system. For COVID response, we're going to need to really be paying close attention to take care of this population.
Well, I'm glad to see the interpretation and translation services as well. So when I look at the bottom line of 9.5 million, that then is to be deducted from the 13 million that remains, and then that gives us balance. Marrow, go ahead.
Yeah, I can elaborate on that when you're ready.
Thank you.
So just to walk you through this spreadsheet and this plan, is really intended to maximize the CARES money to the great extent. Obviously, we need to make sure that we don't leave money on the table. And that is the process I laid out to you just as a reminder. Out of the $15.7 million, $1.7 million have already activities incurred that we're going to be asking to get reimbursed. That will put us down to $14 million. You set aside $1 million for outside purposes. Thurston Strong and United Way will come and give a presentation to the board to determine how that is going to be distributed. And again, you made a point that $1 million can be flexible one way or the other, depending on the many different demands that you will have. So out of the $13 million, if you were to support a $6.5 million request to support public health, that will leave just about $7.7 million available for internal purposes. And those will be the applications the offices and departments will be submitting for you to consider allocating the remainder of those funds. And that's how the numbers. So there's a little variation to what Shelley has it in here because in this worksheet doesn't include the past expenditures of $1.7 million they will need to bring and ask for reimbursement from Commerce.
Okay. Thank you. Any further questions or comments? Go ahead, Gary.
On your testing proposal, is there any testing involving the antibody business for maybe those that it shows they've had it or something and then that might be a benefit, I don't know, herd immunity or different things that we hear about. I don't know if that's coming up or if that's still in the formative stages. Do you know anything about that?
Yes, at this time, public health experts are not recommending the antibody testing, and this testing proposal includes viral diagnostic testing only. And that's because that is the only test that we have right now that is reliable to be able to tell us if the virus is detected in someone currently. And that's what we utilize to determine whether someone needs to be isolated and quarantined. So that's why we continue to message how important it is for people to get tested quickly, and we want to make sure we have that available. We do expect that there's going to continue to be improvements in testing technology in the next, every day. In fact, we learn about new things being developed and faster tests and different types of tests. That this current plan just includes what we know to be as the most reliable current test called a PCR test that is diagnostic. It tells somebody whether they do or do not have COVID-19 currently.
On the criteria set forth by the governor for moving in on phase 2 and subsequently on to 3 and such,
One of the things is that we don't have a certain number per 100,000 to continue on. And I'm wondering about if we expand testing dramatically, say there becomes a test that is more reliable, a quicker return, all that. Is there anything in place to prevent us from basically shooting ourselves in the foot, I guess, by providing too much testing, if you will, so we end up with too many numbers that becomes contrary to the criteria laid out by the governor's office. So am I articulating that scenario properly? Are you getting what I'm talking about here?
I think so, sir. I will certainly try to attempt to answer that or clarify that. So we do not have a concern about being able to do too many tests. Ideally, we want to ensure that we have testing capability for every symptomatic person in Thurston County right now that needs a test. Going forward, as our testing supply chain continues to increase, we may expand that further. We know that there is certain testing, asymptomatic testing, that is being done, both like pre-surgical admissions for hospitals, of healthcare workers, and of long-term care facilities. But those tests need to be repeated frequently, because just because you have tested positive for COVID-19, we have no evidence to date that you have immunity conferred upon you in the future. There are lots of research studies being done now to determine that. We would need a high level of persons infected with COVID-19 in our population to even come close to a herd immunity, and that's if there is determined to be ongoing immunity, which we just don't know yet. So what we pay attention to now is really our percentage positive. And so right now, to date, 2% of all tests done in Thurston County have been positive. So we would be using our total number of tests to look at whether that number goes up or not, to know if we have increases in COVID-19 transmission going on in our community that are of concern to us. Our last few weeks of testing has been significantly lower than 2% of the total tests done. But you do need to make sure that you have adequate levels of testing in your community to be able to draw any conclusions from that percentage positive, and be able to use that to help inform you about COVID transmission. So we're not concerned about doing too much testing at this time.
It's my understanding that the testing that we've been doing has direct correlation with either exposure or symptoms. And I'm told that there was a citizen over the weekend that was, I guess, prepping for elective surgery, and that person was tested by the medical facility where that was taking place, had absolutely no symptoms. I guess it's somebody in their 70s, no symptoms, but yet they tested positive. So are those type of tests going to also count against us, I guess, as this criteria is utilized towards opening or not opening or reverting back? I'm just kind of curious how that's all going to fit in there. And would you contemplate maybe utilizing the professionals? Again, I guess that's kind of where I'm leaning, is to keep the professionals employed doing it. You've mentioned that St. Pete's is talking about eliminating a testing process soon. So I'd like to prevent layoffs if I could. But anyway, could you comment on any of that?
Can you do it briefly,
That's rather
though?
broad, and I know we're running out of time, so.
Yeah, briefly, Shelley, please. Thank you.
Okay, yes. So to answer your question quickly, no, whether a person is asymptomatic or symptomatic, if that test result is positive, we treat that the same. And an asymptomatic person can infect others just as the same as a symptomatic person. and the hospitals are all routinely now testing as a pre-admission or pre-surgery requirement to test all patients prior to their procedure.
Okay, we have two more things on the agenda, and I want to find out what we're going to do with this here. And we have a noon Zoom with WASAC on coronavirus funding. So, Commissioner Menster, do you have any final question or comment?
I didn't really understand what we needed to do to wrap up this item regarding the financing plan for public health.
That's where I'm going with Marrow.
I just probably like to hear from the board concurrence on this plan, and it's really as to how we're going to be utilizing the $15.7 million from the CARES money. And just to wrap all this up, and again, $15.7 million, $1.7 million off the top for past expenditures. That will leave us $14 million, $1 million for external uses, Thurston Strong, United Way, yet to be determined. That will put us $13 million. If you consider funding the 6.5 request from public health, that will put us just about to remainder of $7.5 million left on the out of the 15.7, which that will give you the opportunity to approve projects, internal projects the offices and departments will be submitting for your consideration. So that is really the concurrence that I would like to have from the board in terms of that overall financial plan. But things could change depending as to how we move along, how quickly we're going to be spending these dollars. There is always that flexibility for you to make revisions along the way to make sure that we don't leave any money on the table. And that is probably, I would like to hear from the board on that.
All right, so I'm willing to give you want a thumbs up then, direction.
Yeah, concurrence, yeah.
I don't know yet if this is detailed enough. I generally concur with what's been presented here, but I'm not crazy about creating a whole new bureaucratic division, if you will, to deal with this without having adequate input, mainly from the EDC. I'm very concerned that we adequately address those issues. And I'm very concerned about our healthcare layoffs, not just St. Pete's, but I'm told all the medical facilities around Thurston County are faced with this same problem. In other words, the individual medical offices. So I generally agree, this seems like a good base plan to start with, but I don't know if I'm ready to just say, okay, 7 million to this and 7 to that. I hope we're going to have a further discussion about specific allocations to certain areas. Is that right?
Commissioner Menser?
Yeah, and if I may, in a way, this time is of the essence because the money needs to be spent by October 31st. And related to, creating new positions, the board needs to take an action to create those temporary positions. And at that point, would allow anybody who has been perhaps laid off to access and be part of those positions. Because absent the board creating those temporary positions, nobody can come and do that work. And that's what, and it takes a little time to work with HR to bring those proposals before you. It takes time to go through and identify the quarantine isolation and all of that that Shirley describes. And I don't want to come across that I put the board in a position to rush on decisions that it is just a plan, that this high-level plan as to how you may consider allocating the resources out of the $15.7 million. And again, that high-level plan eventually is going to come with more details your way.
I guess I'm very
these are temporary positions as well, and I'm not going to wait for a plan about how we're going to hire, whom we're going to hire, and help other. It makes sense to do that because they're ready talent pool. But I'm not going to wait for the plan to incorporate that, who we're going to hire. I'm ready to give directions so we can get on with this stuff.
I guess I still want to push for the fact that private enterprise can hire and accomplish things much faster than government. And if we could even
coordinate this with, I'll just use St. Pete's as an example. I'm sure there's many others out there. But if we could coordinate with them that we were gonna augment their funding shortfalls to continue a program to address our needs, I think that's a better expenditure of our dollars if it'll give us the same result. So that's kind of where I'm coming from. I'd like to see a little more coordination with the private sector in accomplishing some of these goals, so.
Commissioner Messer, final comments?
At a high level, I'm comfortable with this.
I am too. Okay. And I understand we need to, yeah, never mind. Thumbs up from me.
Yeah, I mean, I'll go along with this as long as this is just the initial and not the complete program. That's all.
Got it.
More to come. I just
More to
want to keep you up to date as to some of the demands out of the $15.7 million. And again, you will be making those decisions coming up.
So remember, we have the BHO request of BASA, ASO, and the Manor House. I don't know how much time each one needs or which one is the priority.
If I may, Commissioners, Josh and Brett are sitting on the sidelines. I'll give you a perspective on the Manor House preliminary plan.
Okay.
This is related to a comment Commissioner Edwards made a couple of weeks ago about this big development along Marvin Road. I can remember the number of units.
I thought it was 600, but I don't know that.
So I just want to make sure the experts are here to walk you through the process a little bit, and hopefully that will create additional conversations with the board. Josh, Brett?
Yeah, thank you, sir. So appreciate the Commission's interest in the work of community planning and economic development and the applications that we receive. I think that the first best step that we considered as we talked with our prosecuting attorney office, legal counsel, Travis Burns, was to ensure that we don't cross over any of the important barriers to talking about applications. So Travis Burns is also on the call, and see if he can flip over here. Thanks, Travis. So starting off with some of the, I guess, the ground rules to make sure that as we're serving citizens and providing paths forward in their applications, that we don't hinder that process by going too much into an application process that might then hinder the board in making a future decision related to that application. So I'd like to start with Travis, and then when Travis is done providing the ground rules, then he can kick it back over to me.
Yeah, real briefly, I just want to remind the commissioners that this is a very preliminary step in the permitting stage, and that because you all potentially sit in a position of hearing a quasi-judicial hearing in the future if this is appealed, that it's necessary for you all to limit your conversation and discussion to basically sharing information and having Brett describe the process moving forward. So just a basic reminder that because you all sit in that quasi-judicial role, that you limit conversation to basically information and process, and avoid weighing in on the merits at this time so the department can do its work. That's just the basic caution.
Okay.
And so, thank you. That was perfect. Appreciate that. And I'd like to again remind the board that the community planning and economic development, specifically in development services with Brett's group, the pipeline of work did not stop despite the uncertain times that we're in. Brett and his group have done an amazing job of continuing to accept applications at the BDC and then continuing to review the plans. And specifically on this application, or the coming potential application, you've heard on multiple occasions Brett present to you a process improvement called the Project Review Timeline, or PRT. And that is in honor of hearing the input from the community and the citizens and folks about the concept of bring me another rock. Like, just tell me up front what I need to do. And Brett has done an amazing job of putting that project review timeline together. And we had begun piloting it already with the Johnson Smokehouse application. So you've heard all of these process improvements that have been being put in place. Some people call them regulatory reform. We call them process improvements because it's bigger than just the regulation. It's the way that we serve citizens. And so specifically on Manor House, as you're thinking about the project review timeline and you're thinking about the work that Brett has already done in process improvements, use that as kind of your yardstick that the work is continuing and has not stopped in CPED. So I'll kick it over to Brett to kind of give the high level information, as Travis suggested, on this application, just to bring you up to speed.
Thank you, Josh. So the Manor House is a 620 unit proposed subdivision located on 9 parcels totaling about 82 acres in Thurston County's Lacey UGA or urban growth area. I also like to note that this project also includes an extension of Marvin Road to and through the project off of Mullen Road. Of the units total, the proposal is for 419 new single-family homes and 200 multifamily units, with 1 parcel being left over as for the existing resident who is one of the owners of the 9 parcels. The project is proposed at this point in phases of 4 total phases. In general, there would be approximately 165 single-family lots in phase 1, approximately 131 single-family lots, phase 2. Phase 3 is approximately 123 single-family lots, and phase 4 would be the multifamily units. And the 1 existing lot, as I mentioned before, is going to rest on approximately 2 acres. So as Josh had mentioned, this is our basically test pilot project number 2 for the project review timeline that we've been working on. As part of the project review timeline, if you remember from the briefing that we gave to the Board of County Commissioners, there are specific steps in order to ensure predictability and accountability for both the applicants and the county staff, one of which is an application intake appointment. We virtually created an application intake appointment with the applicant and deemed it complete. And since we are maintaining operations in a modified manner, they now have to, unfortunately, but it's our process, to submit online through our online virtual application submittal process, which they have stated they would like to submit early this week. So quite honestly, we could have an active application under review sometime this week.
There's no application yet. You're just doing that review. You've done the review now.
Correct. We have done the project intake appointment. We have deemed the application complete. And once we get the actual application and the fee, we start the process of that project review timeline that you guys have witnessed or been briefed on.
And Brett, without getting into too much detail, you outlined how many homes and multi-dwelling, all that type of stuff, and 2 acre remaining. Is there open space or park included in there for that community?
Yes, sir. As of right now, there is an 11, I would say rounding up approximately 12 acres proposed for open space. And they are also, the applicants are also proposing to conduct a fee in lieu of some open space, pay some additional fees to get a reduction in the park or in the open space amount. All of this is a proposal, has not been vetted, has not been reviewed. This is just what they are proposing at this time.
Okay. That begs more questions, but I'm not going to get into it now. Commissioner Menser, anything?
No.
Okay. Boy, I imagine that's it then. There's not a whole lot we can talk about at this point.
Yeah, and we'll keep you up to date if need be as we move along in the review of this project.
Okay.
I was just going to say thank you very much for the information. No question.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
You have 2 minutes. One last item, if I may.
Yep. The BHO.
This is attached on your packet is a request from the Thurston Mason Behavioral Health Organization. Thurston Mason Behavioral Health Organization. They still call them TMBHO, but anyways. And is for the board to consider them applying for a grant dollars to utilize the additional 2,000 square feet of the building known as a CSA. That's where the triage facility is located at 3285 Ferguson Street Southwest, Tumwater, Washington. And attached to that is somewhat of a sketch as to how they're planning to utilize the additional space. Since this is a county-owned facility, they would like to have a concurrence from the board that in fact you are interested in them applying for this grant that eventually will be utilized, if successful, to get use of the 2,000 square feet that is currently vacant.
So, and basically they're going from a 10 to a 16 bed facility, long-term care. And since it's it's a county building, they need to have the board sign off on it, on the application to Department of Commerce. It has to be done in a timely fashion because, and the Commerce, they require that the BoCC sign off on it. So that's where we are.
Not necessarily sign up, but had an acceptance that in fact you are committing a county facility for this purpose if they're successful in securing the grant.
Right. Robin, did you have anything to add? Nope. Okay. Questions? Ty, do you have anything to add for Commissioner Edwards? Benefit?
Nope, sounds like you guys got it under control. You're both on that board, right?
Yep. Did you have anything to add, Ty?
No.
Okay. So what do you need, Romero? Do you need thumbs up?
Yes, I will like direction from the board.
We're down.
I will communicate with Mark that in fact you're okay with this application.
Just point out for the public, some of the details are laid out in the letter that's concluded in the board packet that hopefully will be accessible.
Yeah, I meant to walk through, but due to timing.
I know, that's same here.
Thank you.
Okay, so you want a thumbs up? There you go. You got it.
Hutch, before, I know Rob Marrow wants to get out of here, but I have just one quick question on this.
You have a Zoom meeting at noon.
I know it. We're going to get right into it. On the very far right of the sheet that we just worked on from the health department, it just says true. And I take it that is in response to those 5 questions on that money right here. You might not even have it. It's right here.
Yeah, I have to get back to you on that. What that?
No, that is just a function of the worksheet to say, does that amount equal the amount that they intend?
Oh, okay. That's good. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you. That concludes the BoCC work session agenda setting for today, and we are adjourned.
Thank you.
Pretty close to being on time.